Guess I get to see it with my own eyes. Jackpot. Devil may cry.
What's going on, guys? My name is RBG and we are back with more coverage on Devil May Cry 5. In today's upload, I thought I'd do something a little different and go behind the scenes of the actual models who've given their likenesses to DMC5. Because I don't think there are that many people covering this particular info, like it tends to go unnoticed for whatever reason. So I'm gonna go ahead and talk about them and give my thoughts on the overall designs for each character model. But before I get into the gist of this discussion, I'm proud to announce that I am now a Amazon associate / affiliate. This platform allows me to promote certain items that I think will pique your interest, and one of the main items I think you will be interested in is the Devil May Cry graphics art book titled 3142. Those specific numbers represent the actual chronology the games are set in, and it's packed with tons of art designs, unused concepts, and exclusive interviews from the devs and artists. I also have links for other DMC related media that'll get you caught up to speed on the story before the newest game comes out. The links will be in the description and pinned in the comments, so check them out if you're interested. But anyways, we all know that Capcom has been very adamant about using their in-house graphics engine called the RE engine, an engine that specializes in a technique called subsurface scatters, which allows them to produce realistic skin, dynamic shadows, and other details while running at a native 4K output. So they're working with some very powerful software that's most likely going to be used for future AAA Capcom titles for years to come. And I think it's mainly for games that'll be going for a more realistic look, because for the most part the RE engine has been mainly centered around capturing that photorealistic aesthetic. There's an insane amount of emphasis they put on making characters and creatures look real, so much to the point that they go out of their way to scan up actual people and physical models of items. And that's been the overall development choice for DMC5. As you can see by the photos, creative liberties were taken to scan up human models to give a more realistic look to the characters, from the physiques to the actual clothing attire, which I heard was made in London. And I'm digging this approach. One of the things I appreciate the most is how there seems to be a balance of fantasy and keeping the clothing designs grounded. Like, I'm not trying to diss the older entries, but the clothing in this game aren't over the top to the point to where the characters look like they're in this fictitious setting. They look more streamlined, and cosplayers will have an easier time remaking their outfits. Dante is basically wearing a zippable hoodie trench coat with a button up and biker pants, something that is dialed down compared to his typical look, but it doesn't necessarily deviate from his iconic one. If anything, I think the boots are probably the most stylistic aspect to his design, with all the belts wrapping around them. But anyways, we have model and fitness fanatic Adam Cowie providing his looks for Devil May Cry's flagship player. On the day of DMC5's reveal at this year's E3, he took to his Instagram to reveal that he would be physically portraying Dante. And I think he's an exceptional choice for this role. Like, he has the right type of build that's not too bulky but just the right amount of muscle and height. I can imagine Dante actually looking like this since he's in his mid to late 40s, as opposed to his DMC face where he looks like he was bitten by a radioactive Fabio. And it looks like the developers went out of their way to make slight modifications to age him up. I know at PAX West they mentioned that they didn't want to make an exact digital double of all the models. They more so wanted to give them a more realistic look while bringing out their character traits. So this is pretty cool. Like, you can instantly tell it's Dante based on his somewhat arrogant expression. The only thing that I think isn't really scanned is his hair, because you see Adam wearing this cap on his head to probably get more focus on his face, and they can add in that silverish hair later. And I'm not sure if that's his actual facial hair or not. And I don't think it is, given the fact that the behind the scenes photos show that he has a clean shave with a little 5 o'clock shadow. But anyways, besides the looks, we still have Ruben Langdon providing his voice talents for Dante along with motion capture. So besides the overall aesthetic, not much has changed with this character. It's still up in the air if Adam Cowie's likenesses will be used for Virgil, since he's Dante's identical twin. I'm assuming that if he is, then it'll have the most alterations given the fact that his body looks to be corroded in the reveal trailer. But moving on, the next model we have is very similar to the first one, Carlo Baker, who's also a fitness buff and professional model. Now this, in my opinion, is the model that most fans, including myself, feel indifferent about. He just doesn't look anything like Nero compared to his DMC4 design. His nose looks wider compared to the original, and his jawline is too chiseled in my opinion. This is something that just doesn't translate well in some of the cutscenes. Like, there are certain moments where Nero's expressions can go from being stoic to downright derpy depending on what he's doing. And I think Itsuno and his team probably handpicked Carlo to give him a more mature look, since this game takes place several years after part 4. And I think it's also because he looks like he could be Adam Cowie's brother or cousin. If the devs were looking at it from that point of view, it'd make perfect sense, because Dante and Nero are literally blood relatives, but it's mainly the nose that throws the character model out for me. Now, I don't think much has changed besides his hair. And as I mentioned, his clothes were also digitally scanned up in the game. And the actual jacket has been shown off at multiple press conferences, and there was even a statue replica with the full attire at the Tokyo Game Show. When it comes to his clothing design, I say it looks pretty cool. It sort of puts me in the mind of the civilians of Zion from the Matrix. Like, he has that post-apocalyptic aesthetic, especially with the tattered sweater and white undershirt. But anyways, Johnny Young Bosch will be returning to voice and provide motion capture for Nero. Moving on, we have Nico's model, Emily Bador. This one is probably the most high profile out of all the models. She has a huge following and it has been featured in a slew of commercials. For the longest time, we didn't know who Capcom was using for Nico's digital double, but back in August at PAX West 2018, they revealed that it was Emily Bador. And this character has really grown on me. Like, I'm really liking how she's this hands-on weaponsmith that doesn't mind entering into the chaos. Her attire pretty much matches her country girl personality with the Daisy Dukes and the cowgirl boots. And as you can see by the footage, it looks like she's gonna have an alternate costume, which is a welding smock for when she has to cover up doing her weapon crafting. As far as the face is concerned, it's probably my favorite model out of all of them because everything came out great, especially Emily's likenesses. Although I will say that it looks like they reduced the actual lip size on the digital double and her eyebrows have been dialed down. Among the other obvious alterations is the additions of the hair and tattoos. As far as her voice and mocap actors are concerned, there's still no official details on them. I've heard that Emily will be lending her own voice to the character as well, but I don't think she will because she has a thick English accent in real life. But there's still a possibility because a lot of British actors in Hollywood know how to sound like Americans. But there's not much else I can say about this character. So this brings me to ladies model, Andrea Tivador. Unlike the other models, Andrea just so happens to be a film actress, and this isn't her first time having her likenesses used in a digital project. For those who've seen Final Fantasy XV Kingsglaive, you'll recognize her as Crow Altius, a Kingsglaive member and powerful mage. Now this character model is one of the ones I have to say maintains that hyper stylized Devil May Cry fashion the most. I go so far as to say her design supersedes her DMC4 look, which for the longest time has been my all-time favorite design for a lady, because the business attire was pretty self-explanatory. She means business. The new look seems to take certain visual cues from the previous versions, like her signature white button-up shirt that looks like she borrowed it out of Iori Yagami's closet from Fatal Fury, and she now has a leather jacket like her Devil May Cry colleagues. One of my favorite design choices would have to be the bare-ass chaps, because this shows that she's just as expressive with her sex appeal as she was in DMC4, and she's rocking her usual utility belt that gives off the illusion that she's wearing a schoolgirl skirt. Now granted, her tatas have been drastically nerfed compared to the previous version, but I guess it's due in part to the actual model not being well endowed. And I know this is a nitpick, but I really think the design team should have considered aging her up a little, considering she's only a few years younger than Dante. But I guess since her appearance is based off of the duo girl group Tattoo's lead singer Julia Volkova, they probably wanted to retain her youthful look. But other than that, everything makes her look recognizable. Now this next one is quite a doozy, and that's Trish, who's being doubled after UK model Ariana Diamonds. Now Trish's digital double has undoubtedly gotten the most mixed reactions because of how weird her face looks in game. Like, it's not necessarily bad by any means, but it does not look a thing like her. Which is weird because based on some of the still shots you get of her, you can tell that she is in fact based after Ariana Diamond. I wanted to make sure it wasn't just me being too critical, but I looked at some of the comments on the Japanese Devil May Cry Twitter account, and when I looked, a majority of the fans shared my sentiments, with some noting that Capcom probably reused Mia's model from Resident Evil 7. Now, as I mentioned earlier with Nero, this is most likely due to the model's face not translating well into CG with certain expressions. Like, I know the most recent trailer we got, the facial captures were from Japanese actors just with English dialogue, so that's probably why her face looked a little weird. I know this is the first time I've ever seen Trish crack a full-blown smile with her teeth showing, but I think her face should be a little bit longer, especially the bridge of her nose. Like, Trish has always had a unique slender looking face, and after looking at Ariana's photos, she looks like she's the ideal look for the character. It just looks like the Capcom team have tampered with her look a little too much. I really feel like they didn't have to tweak anything because the model was already perfect. Besides the minor gripes, what I do love is how her attire looks more like the first Devil May Cry game with a little added detail. I mean, she's not as busty as her DMC4 model, but I'm not really gonna complain. I always thought her milk motels were overly expressive in that game anyways. But regarding her voice actress, there's still no info, so we'll just have to wait and see. Next up is the newly introduced character V, and he's being modeled after Owen Hamzy. Now, I'm guessing that this guy is an up-and-coming model. He has a smaller following compared to the others, but considering he's being featured in DMC5, he's gonna gain a lot of popularity. He's been the butt of a few jokes, with some calling him Adam Driver or Kylo Ren after he was seen in the leaked footage. Like, I really don't think he looks like Adam Driver at all. Like, he just looks like a weird emo kid. Not to mention that all the angles we saw him in didn't do him justice. If anything, I feel like this is the least altered model since most of Owen's characteristics have remained intact. I think his slim build really helps give out the feeling that V is just a frail guy with a cane, and he has a very enigmatic look to him. I love the cutout sleeves trench coat with the wristbands, but I'm not really digging the hippie sandals. I much prefer him wearing boots. But I guess since he's rumored to be a demon summoner and not much of a runner, it sort of fits him. I have a nagging suspicion that those tattoos are going to play a part in his abilities because they have this very mystic look to them on some Scar from Full Metal Alchemist shit. According to IMDb, it said he's being played by a guy by the name of Lucas II, and honestly, I'm not too familiar with this guy's work. Like, his profile doesn't list anything, so I'm guessing this is his first gig. Nevertheless, the voice fits the character perfectly.
He who desires but act not breeds pestilence. So it is written.
The last character model I want to talk about is Morrison. Unfortunately, there isn't anything on the actual actor or model who he's based on, or who's voicing him. I mentioned in one of my earlier videos that I think he's being voiced by Bo Billingsley, who's known for his role as Jet Black in Cowboy Bebop, but his IMDb profile doesn't mention anything about Devil May Cry 5. I'm starting to think that he's a character that was made from the ground up. One of the most noticeable differences from his original iteration is that they changed his ethnicity. He was originally Caucasian in the Devil May Cry anime, but for whatever reason they made him black. But his fashion sense still remains the same, which shows that they're trying to remain a little consistent. What's interesting enough is that he's the first character to transition from the DMC anime into the video games. But with that said, I'd like to bring this video to a close. I want to know what you guys think about the models and actors I've mentioned. Are you officially sold on Capcom's choices? And do you like their designs? Let me know down in the comments below. As always, I'd appreciate it if you like or dislike the video. It doesn't have to be a thumbs up, it can be a thumbs down. Any feedback is good feedback and will only help me improve on future content. But if you really enjoyed the video, it would help me out tremendously if you shared it on social media outlets with all your friends and followers. Also, don't forget to check out the items I mentioned in my Amazon affiliates link. You don't have to necessarily buy anything, simply clicking the links will help. But anyways, this is your boy RBG signing out on another video. I will catch you guys later. Peace out.